Welcome to AJC Europe Connects. My name is Sebastian Reyak, and I'm the Acting Director of AJC Central Europe. This webinar is live streamed on Facebook accounts of the AJC Transatlantic Institute and the Civic Resilience Initiative, and also on the Twitter account of AJC Central Europe. Today, you are going to attend our second webinar in the series titled Media Literacy 101. The topic of today's webinar is Ways to Fight Disinformation, Open Source Tools and Methods. We've been all recently focusing on the challenge of disinformation. The problem, of course, didn't start with the coronavirus, but because of the pandemic, it has become more acute and omnipresent. Central Europe has been particularly affected by what might be called a stream of fake news and propaganda. That has a lot to do with its not so remote history and difficult neighborhood. It seems Central Europe's unique experience in dealing with disinformation is an asset that can be shared with others. That is why we have invited Lukas Andriukaitis, who is Associate Director at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab, to lead today's webinar. American Jewish Committee, or AJC, is a nonpartisan advocacy organization. It has been at the forefront of the defense of democracies around the globe. AJC Central Europe office opened in 2017 and serves 7 countries: the Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Slovakia. We are privileged to be organizing this webinar in partnership with the Civic Resilience Initiative, a Lithuanian NGO based in Vilnius. Its director, Tomas Kazulenas, is with us today, and he will introduce himself in a second. I want to kindly inform all of you attending this webinar that you can ask questions using the Q&A button or by sending questions on Facebook. We will have 15 to 20-minute sections, after which your questions will be read out. If there are any pressing issues you have not fully understood what the speaker is talking about, you can also ask questions during the presentation, and in some cases we may read the questions before the section is over. Thomas, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sebastian. Hi everyone, I am Tomas Kazulenas, the head of and the board member of the Civic Resilience Initiative based in Vilnius. But at this time I'm living and working in Rome. Just before the quarantine, I had an opportunity to visit Israel and participate in AJC interchange program and meet with Sebastian and Barnabas. And this seminar is an idea that was born out of a conversation between us. So thank you so much for making this webinar possible. So I really appreciate our cooperation with AJC Central Europe office and hope to continue it in near future. Very briefly, Civic Resilience Initiative is focusing on security, media literacy, and disinformation. No doubt that Lithuania is one of the leading countries in Europe in countering disinformation, fake news, and information operations. Therefore, the main idea of this seminar is to share our exceptional experience in countering disinformation and teach you open source methods and tools. The most of the tools and methods and principles on how to check information are publicly available and easy to use. And today's our speaker, Lukas, will show us and explain. So, and I would like to introduce you to my colleague, Lukas Andriukaitis. He's Associate Director and Digital Forensic Researcher at Atlantic Council, and now he's currently based in Brussels. So have a good seminar and looking forward to seeing you in the next our initiatives. Lukas, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Let me just share my slides very quickly. I'm very excited to be part of the seminar. In the DFRLab, we think that education on media literacy is one of the core things that we should do, and I'm always very excited to speak with the public about it. So please, if you'll have any questions, feel free to jump in. And without further ado, let's begin. So I'm Lukas Andriukaitis. I'm an associate director here at DFRLab. Before we start, let me tell you a few things about how we run things, because that should make a little more sense. Why am I speaking about all of this that I'm going to present? When I started DFRLab, I was a researcher, and I still do research. My main focuses were Syria, Russia, and Ukraine, both from the security side and both from disinformation side. So a lot of the examples I'm going to show you today will concern these regions. DFRLab is quite unique when we're talking about different NGOs and different think tanks around the world. And the main thing is that we're spanned out globally. As all these little stars you can see are our offices around the globe, and we're very happy to say that we have permanent presence in 5 different continents. Most of our offices are based in Europe, and I'm currently based here in Brussels. And by having this wide geographical span, we're able to monitor disinformation globally. And why is this important? Because we think that we live in a very strange time where so much information is surrounding currently us that we are in no position other than to check everything that is coming at us. And the problem is that a part of this information that is surrounding us is being used for malign reasons, and it poses some challenges. And in DFRLab, we think that open source is a very good method to battle this information. And I wanted to show you a few examples how we used it. And at the very end, show you how you can do some of the open source research or checks yourself. In DFRLab, we have the motto to identify, expose, and explain this information in real time, exactly by using these methods. And you might ask, what is open source data if you haven't worked with it before? Different organizations might provide you with slightly different answers. But the way I like to describe it is that it's everything from tweets, satellite imagery, Facebook photos, basically everything that you can get out of Google without breaking the law and without doing something illegal is open source. So basically the information is available for everyone publicly and ideally free of charge. There are quite a few advantages of this data. It's highly accessible. Anyone who has a phone or a computer or even a smartwatch and has connection to the internet can access the same information. Anyone who follows along the analysis steps the way we do it can do exactly the same research. And this is nice because in many ways open source research becomes like science experiments. If you follow the steps correctly, you'll always get the same result. So it's factual, and it's not it's not opinion based. Also, information is not classified. This is an important and interesting point because a lot of what we do is similar to what militaries and intelligence communities around the world do, but so we don't have classified information, and we're free to share it with the public. And with simple training, everyone can do it. I'll give you a few examples and a few tools to use yourself, and I hope by the end you'll see that it's actually very easy. There are tons of different ways to use open source, and we have a team of 25 researchers around the globe, and they're picking and choosing how to use these tools for different purposes, for different focuses. But today I would like to give you a few examples as broad as possible. So the first one comes from our research that is concerning democracy. And the way we see it in DFRLab is that it's possible to take all of our research and put into these three main sort of research groups or research criteria that we focus on. And the first one is democracy. And how we look at this kind of research and what we try to achieve here is that we believe in free and fair elections, and we try to do our best to help them stay this way. And we travel usually, well, not right now because we're all in a lockdown, but we have to travel virtually at the moment. But usually we travel to different countries around the world and cooperate with local media, with local NGOs, and help them monitor the election. And this is a very nice way of cooperation because we're able to provide them with know-how, and local partners are usually providing them with information networks that they can easily spread the knowledge that we have. And in this way, we're able to track down, expose, and publicize these information campaigns, and make an impact on what is actually happening. So as you can see from this map, I think this is our map of travels for 2018. So we try to go around globally quite a lot. The only continent we haven't been as a team is Australia so far. So that's hopefully also on our list. So how does it look in practice, you might ask? Let's go with an example from German elections in 2017. And I'm not sure how many of you are following the German politics too much, but Alternative for Deutschland is a quite a radical right party with very clear anti-immigrant policies. And I'm not going to get political here, but during the elections, we were tracking them as potential group who might use some unorthodox methods of communication, and we were quite right. We found this image on their Facebook post, and for us, it looked a little too good to be true because, as you can see, the idea behind the image is that it's emotionally charged. And it wants to achieve a certain effect from the reader, anger or fear, in order to make to send the anti-immigrant message. Well, for us, it looked too good because if you would look at the girl in the front, she looks a bit like in a spotlight, as if there's a spotlight shining on her, and we wanted to check if the image is unaltered. And to do that, we used a reverse image search that I'm going to talk about at the very end a little more. But in this way, we were able to find the original image that was used. And as you can see, it was taken from events that happened in Egypt, which don't have a whole lot to do with German elections. And the background fits perfectly. We were able to find the exact frame which they used for the background. But this still does not answer who's the girl in the front, right? So by cutting only her face out and using the same reverse image search technique, we were able to find the girl as well. And the interesting part that the girl comes from this magazine, which I also think has not a whole lot to do with the German elections. So at the end, what we saw is that they cross-stitched two completely unrelated images to send an emotionally charged message, which was exposed. And at that time, when it was exposed, they had to take it down and publicly apologize. So before going further, I would like to make my first little stop, if you have any questions at this moment. Are we good? Are we good to continue?
Yes, I think we're good to continue. If anything, I would ask you, Lukas, maybe to repeat the name of the tool that you used, and I guess everybody can use to track people's faces.
Yeah, it's called reverse image search, but I'm going to show at the very end how to use it as a tool. I'm going to go a little more in depth. So
Great.
Let's wait till the end for that.
Okay, and there is okay. Right now we have a question. It's about AFD. Why do you think the AFD took down the advertising?
Because I think once exposed, they knew that it doesn't look good for them, and I think it was just to save face, to take it down was easier rather than to keep it.
Yeah, that's the only question for now. Thank you, Lukas.
All right, perfect. So the other part of our research is technology. And the way we see the technology part is that we're very interested in the newest technological solutions that are being used for wrong deeds. So basically, we're interested in how the newest technology is being used for the sake of disinformation. We did quite a lot of research into automation. That was the very start of DFRLab. We were trying to find ways how to easily identify automated accounts, fake accounts. So in other words, bots and trolls. How to find easy ways to spot them, and what to even do with them once you spot them. And now we're more and more going into other spheres such as deepfakes, which are very high quality altered videos. How to easily spot them, what to look for, and so on and so on. So, as I mentioned, everything started from fake Twitter accounts, fake Facebook accounts, and we developed quite a few ways how to spot them. So, in this example, as you can see, there are 3 different girls using the same image. And this is one of the best ways to spot that at least 2 of these accounts are fake. And to do this, you can also use reverse image search that we're going to talk about a little later. But why is this important? Because this actually touched our team quite a few times as well. As you can see on the screen on the left, there's our non-resident senior fellow Ben Nimmo. And a few years ago, he was constantly being bombarded by fake accounts when people create very, very lookalikes or identity theft sort of accounts, and try to mimic him, try to mimic or send a message in his name. And in many ways, those accounts are quite easy to spot and quite easy to take down. As you can see, the name is in Cyrillics, and the Twitter handle is a random mix of words and letters. That he lives in Novorossiya and works for FSB. So these sort of accounts are just easy to spot. But some of the accounts are usually created in a way that it's hard to spot them, and even harder to tell which one is real. And as you can see, these sort of accounts are created almost perfectly. The only difference in this account is that, as you can see, that the handle instead of KS has an X, and this was done very purposefully to try and deceive. Another interesting moment here is that, as you can see, the fake account on the right was created earlier than the real account. And you might ask, how did that happen? But Twitter has a function of changing the Twitter handles, and anytime you want, as long as the original handle is not being used. So basically, what I think happened is that there was an old account being used for other different things, and then one day decided to mimic the person on the left, our first director Max. They just changed the account's appearance and changed the account's handle, and they were able to very actually efficiently mimic the real account. Why is this important? Because by using these techniques, the actors are able to manipulate public opinions. So, for example, in this case, they would copy most of the content from the original accounts and slip in some messages that they wanted to slip in. So basically, it's a sort of a covert operation. And some of these messages that they send are quite scary. In this case, we took it as a sort of a threat because the account posted a meme saying that one of our researchers was dead, and this caused a lot of a lot of commotion inside our team because this was a good example of how these fake accounts can be used to intimidate. But we also look into information operations as a thing, and in my own experience, I've been working mostly with Russian pro-Kremlin disinformation. We noticed that there's a very effective way for them to spread this info, and we call it the full spectrum propaganda. And this is quite unique. You can't find it anywhere else in democratic countries due to the fact that they're able to spread the disinformation using a variety of tools, and that not all of them are available in a fully functional democracy. So how they do it is that they use trolls, they use bots, they use unofficial propaganda sites, official propaganda sites, and they use diplomats. And this is the important and most interesting part, is because they're able to use the government's resources to spread disinformation, which is not possible elsewhere. So this story comes from 2017, right after the elections that happened in United States with Russian interference. And it took a little bit for the American society to figure out what is happening and to provide a response. And one of the response was that a number of NGOs tried to look for ways how to educate the society of what actually happened. And a lot of famous people joined this actually very, very meaningful work. And one of those people was Morgan Freeman, and he released this kind of video, which let's see a few seconds of it. Whoop. I really like this video because it shows how well the educational materials can be, and how high quality and how easy to watch they can be made to look like. So anyways, without a lot of explanation, I can say that the pro-Kremlin media did not like this video at all, because it caused quite a lot of engagement. And so they started counter information campaign called Stop Morgan Lies. They used a very specific hashtag for this campaign to basically smear the actor and smear the whole information that was released by him. So how these full spectrum propaganda operations work is that usually they start at some niche propaganda websites that you don't know a whole lot about. They're not very significant. In this case, they were using the Agitpolk, or website, which is describes to be, independent from the government, but it's easy to spot that they're not. One of the things how to spot these sort of website is that they use the keyword anti-Russia hysteria, which is a term coined and used very much quite a lot by Russian foreign ministry. So if you see this keyword, you might have suspicions that it might be part of some network. Once the information is being released in these propaganda sites, which are unofficial, then usually trolls take them. Trolls are fake accounts, but they have real people behind them. And in this case, Zampolit, a well-known Russian troll, took it and started spreading it on Twitter and on other social media websites, only for this information to be taken by bots. And bots are automated accounts, which have the main purpose of spreading the information as much as possible with very little human interaction. So after that, here's the important and interesting part. It's been taken by the government's official social media accounts and websites. So in this case, you see the general consulates of Russian Federation in Geneva, and as you can see, they started using the same hashtag. Some of these accounts even started making memes, which was quite interesting, and they tried to further smear the actor, showing that he's smoking weed and other things. After that, we also checked in which languages most of the disinformation came by using social media listening tools. Since most of this operation came with a specific hashtag, it was quite easy to track from where it came and where it went. And lastly, they ended up in official propaganda accounts such as RT, official propaganda media outlets. RT, Sputnik News, and other media giants that are quite openly working for Kremlin. So if you would see how this sort of operations work, this is a nice and easy layout. It starts with unofficial propaganda accounts and goes to trolls and bots for amplification. Then government accounts step in to provide some basis, for further stories. And once that is in, official big media giants step in to further spread the disinfo, but also have something to rely on, saying that already something happened. Media of official Russian government media posted about it, and so on and so on. So I will make another short stop here for questions, and then we can start covering security part of it.
Okay, thank you, Lukas. We have a few questions. The first one actually goes back to the AFD thing, and the question is, the AFD poster was an advertisement. How do you differentiate between just an advertisement and disinformation or misinformation? Can mere posters be used as tools of disinformation? This may be paid ads. Is there any border? Can you say that one is never the other, or can a mere advert very well be used as a tool of disinformation?
No, it's actually a lot of a gray territory, and you have to be careful to differentiate. That's actually a very good question, but we usually also try and see what is the message being sent by these things, right? And in this case, it was borderline hate speech. Well, not fully, but they were trying to use these sort of edited content in order to raise anti-immigrant sentiment, which we think at least has to be exposed, and then the public can react in any way they can, but we can at least show how how they're using these techniques, and the public or the voters can judge for themselves.
Thank you. Another question. It is useful for an average internet user to run and check whether his or her identity has been stolen online. What are the tools to look for fake accounts? First of all, check whether your own account may have been stolen and is being used as a fake one. And other thing, you were getting messages, we're seeing posts on various social media, how to check whether the account is fake or not. Is there a tool to use?
Well, we'll talk a bit more about it while using the last part of our segment. I'll talk about reverse image search. But one of the easiest ways is just to check whether or not the photos are stolen, because most likely the thing that will be used in a stolen fake account is the photo, and most of the other information will be made up. So I think let's talk about it in a good 15 minutes, and I hope I'll be able to answer that question more in depth.
Okay. And one more question, going back to the Morgan Freeman video. The question is simply, so the original video was a video made with Morgan Freeman as an actor, and that was a true video, not something that an entity has produced that was later hacked. So what you showed us at the beginning was a true video that Morgan Freeman has agreed to participate in producing it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was made by one of the, I think, NGOs in the United States with the idea to tell the public what actually happened, using famous people to get more traction for it. So yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I think this is it for now with the questions.
Perfect.
So we can continue, Lukas.
Perfect. So let's quickly talk about the security part of work. I'm not sure how many of you are the most interested in this part, because it's not strictly disinformation. It's more open source intelligence, but this is my bread and butter. And as a former military person, I'm very much interested in the security topic. And how we assess security situations around the globe and how we look into it is quite interesting as well, because we use open source tools to look through the fog of war. So basically, we're able to investigate different conflicts and try and explain what is actually happening, providing facts that are checked by us, and that once we find something, anyone else is free to go through the same steps and do exactly the same. So as I mentioned, I worked a lot on the Syria case, on Ukraine, but we also look into Libya, Venezuela, and other places around the globe. And to do that, we use one tool amongst many, but this is one of my favorite ones. It's called geolocation. And it is a way to identify where an object in the photo was taken, in which location. And this proves to be very, very useful. So for example, we worked on private military companies in Syria, and one of them was Legacy, run by Russia, and we wanted to investigate whether or not some of the photos are actually real, and how does it work in practice. So for example, you find a tweet, and in the tweet you find four photos, right? And in order to understand where they are, what they're doing, and whether or not it actually happened, you have to find where they are. And in practice, it looks like this. We look for this information on publicly available satellite imagery, and I try to identify by the details in the background where it is. This sort of work has quite a lot of advantages because it requires simple training. We do trainings in DFRLab, and after a couple of days, most of the people are as good as us in doing this. if you're using a variety of satellite imagery providers, you can basically investigate locations day by day, because some of the providers give you imagery day by day, and you can cross match and compare what is happening there. And lastly, once it's checked, this serves as a reliable open source evidence in your investigations. The problem is that it's quite tedious work. It's unable to be automated at the moment, so there's a lot of work for the researcher to try and find how, what actually happened where. Why is it important? I could give you a lot of reasons, but my favorite reason in my sort of work is that Russian soldiers like selfies, and since I focus a lot of interest in what Russian military is doing around the globe, finding some of the selfies provided by the soldiers can give you a lot of insights. And this is actually how DFRLab was born, with this report, Hiding in Plain Sight. If you're interested in the Ukrainian conflict, you should actually read it. It's a really nice piece of work. I haven't been part of DFRLab yet when this was released, but the idea behind it is that DFRLab wanted to check and prove that Russian soldiers are involved in Ukraine at the time, mostly because the president of Russian Federation was denying Russian involvement at the time. So we used open source evidence by using these publicly available data. We were able to track different Russian soldier accounts, and using geolocation and other tools to prove that they were actually operating in Ukrainian territory with full Russian uniforms, with Russian equipment, and so on and so on. In some cases, we were even able to find their whole journey from Russia to Ukraine. So if you haven't watched a video called Selfie Soldiers, I recommend finding it on YouTube. But basically in that research, together with Vice News, we were able to show how this guy, Bato Dombayev, managed to come from central Russia to Ukraine and just track all of his journey. And the journalist even went to the same places and took identical pictures at the same locations just to prove that he was actually there. So it's a very fascinating piece of work. And if you haven't seen it, it's called Selfie Soldiers, and it's available on YouTube. And another example which I found comes from Syria from 2017. On November 26th, there were news that 53 civilians were killed in the southern part of Syria. And one of the NGOs working in the United Kingdom blamed the Russian military for it because they were operating strategic bombers in the area, but the Russian military denied it. So we wanted to see if there's any open source evidence to see what actually happened. And the way we do it, in this case, I went on their publicly available YouTube account. And on this account, you could find a lot of very interesting videos because they're very active on social media. But I noticed that there are videos of strategic bombers being operated somewhere in Syria. And I took a closer look and found that there are 4 videos that were uploaded roughly at the same time. So you can't see a whole lot from the video because they're quite short. But one of the interesting things that you can do is that you can try and geolocate them by using the river in the background. So no river has 2 identical river bands, and if you compare what you see from the video with satellite imagery, you can get a pretty good idea where those planes were flying. And we did exactly that with all the videos that we could find. And at the end of the day, we had a pretty good operational map. As you can see here, we knew roughly on which day they were flying where and where the bombs were dropped. But the most interesting part of this whole story is that one of the videos on the left that was posted on November 26th had a certain glitch in the video. And usually videos don't do that. So one of the ways we wanted to analyze it, we slow motioned it and basically looked at it frame by frame to see what is causing that glitch. And as you can see, the glitch is being made by a certain frame that was left behind. And my hypothesis here is that once the video was given to the editors did a pretty sloppy job and just cut the video at the wrong place and left the frame which maybe they didn't want to leave behind. And let's take a look at that frame. As you can see, there are two main things that you can get from this point of a second worth of frame. It's that you can see bombs being dropped and river bends. This is not a very easy to geolocate picture because of the low quality. But once you play around with Photoshop to enhance the colors a little bit, you can identify some of the river bends a little easier. And as you can see on the left bottom corner is the village of Ashafa, where the 53 civilians were killed. And they were killed on the same day, reported on the same day as the video was released. So you can argue whether or not this is enough to be reliable open source evidence. At the same time, it is enough to start questioning why the Russian military presence was denied and to be operating in the area, and so on and so on. So this is a very, very good lead on further investigation. And before we jump on our last part of the session, talking about source analysis, do you have any questions for me at the moment?
Well, the only question I would have is, what are the tools to be able to do the same kind of tracking that you did? And I'm afraid the answer may be that average internet users may not be able to use those tools, but still, maybe.
Basically, to do the tracking, the only thing you needed is Google Earth or Google Maps. So any publicly available satellite imagery to do that is quite enough. All the rest is in the skill. So to learn geolocation is actually pretty easy. We usually train the person to do that fully in 2 days. So if you'll be interested in some of our workshops, please follow DFRLab's Twitter, and we constantly do different workshops, especially now when they're all online. So to put it short, any user can do that. It just requires a little bit of training. So it's not that hard as it might look.
Thank you, Lukas.
Perfect. So I guess let's start with the last part of our session, and let's talk about a few tools that anyone can use after this presentation of mine. I'll give you a few of the easy to use, but also quite reliable and with a very broad sort of use tools. The first one is what we talked about, the reverse image search. So if you haven't heard about it, this is a very easy way to use the search engine, whether it will be Google or Yandex or Bing or whatever you're using, to search for images. But it's using the search engine, but instead of using words, you're using images. So instead of saying a cat, you're putting an image of a cat for the search engine to find. And what this allows to do, these search engines finds identical or very, very, very similar images around which were already posted. So in our line of work, we usually do that to find if the image was not posted before. So if the image is not pretending to be something else. As I mentioned, this is one of the best ways to find fake accounts. because usually fake accounts are being used, being created while using stolen images. So in this case that you see on the screen right now, this photo was taken from a dating site. So usually when someone is creating a fake account, they're trying to get the images as fast as possible and from the biggest databases as they can find. And how do you do that? Here's a very short video. You go to images.google.com. You upload an image that you want to search for. You press search, and basically the search engine finds every identical or very similar image. And then you can see on which websites and when exactly they were posted. So this is a very good way to check if the Facebook friend that sent you a request is a real person, because you just save the profile picture, go to Google and check if all of the pictures are appearing of the same name. And if you find that the picture was taken from, from a dating site, there's a very good chance that it's a fake account. To improve the search, you can use additionally 2 things. You can install Rabbi reverse image search, which is a Google Chrome extension, which allows you to use multiple search engines at the same time. It's very, very easy to use if you're using Google Chrome. And the other thing that you can use is Yandex. Yandex has also the reverse image search function, but Yandex also has face recognition. So for example, if you have a picture of a person you don't know, which you find online or someone sends you, you can try and use the same method of reverse image search on Yandex to get possible identification. So I like to give this example or even a short exercise for people. Basically, give them an image of a person they don't know and ask them to find the name and the last name and where he works using Yandex. And if you upload this picture to Yandex, the first result will be this. Who's Graham Brookie, my director of my organization, and it's very, very easy to use. So you can also play around and check that. The nice part is that Yandex has compatibility with social media networks. So, for example, if a person on Facebook is asking to be your friend and you don't know his identity, you can also use Yandex, and it might even recognize the true identity of the person who's asking your acceptance to be a friend online. The same method we're using for video verification. Basically, if you find a video online that you have suspicion that might be edited or fake, or saying that it's something else than it is, you can quite easily to check its you can easily check its sources by using the same method, because basically at the end of the day, a video is just a series of frames, and if you take one of the frames from the video, you can use the same reverse image search. So to do that, we use 2 publicly available tools, Invid or Amnesty Data Viewer. And if you just put the link of the video of your interest in one of these programs, you can do the same reverse image search and check whether or not the video was posted before, on what websites it was posted, when was it created, and so on and so on. And the last thing that you can do to check your sources is you can check if the video was photoshopped or not. I have to say that these methods are a little less reliable, because they're very quick and they don't require a whole lot of expertise to use them. So they're not able to capture everything that you might be interested in looking for. But basically, these tools, photo forensics and forensically, allows you to look into something called error level analysis. So they're looking for inconsistencies or errors in the image, which are being left by the process of Photoshop. In practice, it looks like this. If you find an image which you might think could be photoshopped, and if you run it through the error level analysis online, you will get an analysis like this that you see on the right. So basically, it finds inconsistencies in the pixels, and it highlights them with different colors. So as you can see, the program in this case think that the bottom and top of the disk might be photoshopped in, and it will provide you with a suggestion to take a closer look at this place. This example is also good because it shows that it doesn't capture the headphones. So as you can see, not every single Photoshop can be detected, but in my experience, I managed to find quite a lot of fakes by using this very simple method, because it takes you a couple of minutes to check. And actual photo forensics is quite a long process, and the specialists that are involved have to go through a lot of training. But this is a free, easily accessible, and very easy to use tool that you can just quickly scan through and check whether or not the image was photoshopped. And when you use on the photoshopped image, you use the reverse image search, then you can find the original source and find out how the photo looked originally. So it's quite easy to do. So on this note, I would like to finish my presentation and maybe start the last Q&A session of today.
Sure, thank you, Lukas. So we have a few more questions. The first one is this: all of these tools require quite good knowledge of the methods of the creators of fake content and good critical thinking, which seem to be specialist knowledge and experts knowledge to an extent, and it seems to require skills. This is hard to put to scale. How do organizations like yours see the problem of scaling the use of these tools to the general public?
Well, it's a good question. I think one of the things that we try the most in our organization is to spark critical thinking, and to some extent to spark some distrust in the information that people are seeing. At the same time, don't think that these tools actually require a lot of knowledge, because most of the people we work with, and we try to aim at journalists, NGO workers, anyone who has some public voice in the society. But we also try to work with students, high school students, university students, people who are tech savvy. So we try to work with these sort of key groups, and so far I think it's going pretty well. The scaling, especially with the younger generation, is pretty easy, especially if you do your trainings in an engaging way. And you use examples that from their life. For example, how would you check your Facebook friends if they're fake or not? There, you get the excitement going, and the tools to learn the tools when the excitement is there, it's quite easy.
Thanks. One more big question, and it's about coordinated or centralized response planning. Since let's be frank, a lot of the disinformation and propaganda campaigns are coming from state actors. We don't have to use names. Do you know whether there are any organized efforts at counteracting these kind of campaigns? We, as targets of disinformation campaigns, NGOs, state-run institutions, is there any cooperation and coordination in terms of responding, collectively responding to misinformation flooding?
Yes, I think there is more and more improvements on that. the governments are trying to cooperate, but the core sort of group that we work together with taking down this information are social media platforms. So we have a very good cooperation with Facebook, and we provide them with information that we find, and they provide us information that they find, and we try to, you know, learn from each other and how to quicker detect these, and then they have the, you know, the ability to take these malign actors down from their social media platforms. So I think the cooperation between NGOs and social media platforms is crucial at the moment, because these parts of internet, these communities are one of the key places where this information is being spread. So I hope this answers the question.
Sure. Thank you, Lukas. And one more question. I think this is going to be the last question. Seems to be a simple one, but who knows? What methods do we have to work with text? If you want to trace the original source of some text, some piece of information that you're reading, it seems suspicious. Are there any tools, online available tools, to track the original text, even if the text also has been modified to make it more complicated to trace it back?
Yeah, well, I think the easy answer is Google. Basically, any search engine allows you to play with keywords, and once you get the right keywords in the search engine, then you can see from the oldest to the newest and try to see what outlets or what sources the same information, in what sources the same information is being used. And in this way, you can, you know, find the original source, or you can find where it was started to be manipulated, or who changed it, and so on. So the very easy answer is any of the search engines that are available. My preference is Google.
Okay, thank you. One last question, and this is really going to be the last. I think quite important. You talked about your cooperation with Facebook. So the question is, are users informed that a posting was fake after it was taken down by Facebook?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. I would have to check. What I know for sure is that Facebook and Twitter are launching a new campaign to mark all of the information that is being funded by a specific source. So, for example, under the message, you'll start getting little text boxes saying, this post was created by the Russian government, or this post was created by Chinese government, so that people would know the actual source where it was coming from. So this I can say for sure that they're at least working on it at the moment, but about informing the users, I cannot say with confidence.
Thank you very much, Lukas.
Yeah, thank you.
So
I hope it was useful.
So, thank you so much, Lukas, for your presentation, useful insights, practical tools and methods we can use in our daily life. Just wanted to add that the purpose of our projects are to cause long-lasting digital resilience effects in societies. And I'm sure that this project, in cooperation with AJC Central Europe office, is one of that. So if you want, you can follow us on Facebook and other social media channels and check out about more events like this. And before the ending, I want to give the floor to Sebastian.
Thank you, Thomas. Well, Lukas, this has really been a very informative and insightful and thought-provoking webinar. I hope we can cooperate in the future and can offer more trainings to the public. So let me officially thank you on behalf of AJC for taking the time to join us. We were pleased to be joined by Lukas Andriukaitis. Thank you, Lukas, for sharing your unique experience and expertise in countering disinformation. This was the first time we cooperated with you, but I very much hope not the last one. Thank you to everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with us watching our Twitter account. You can send messages. You can respond by email to the invitation email that you received. And please stay safe and healthy. We look forward to seeing you again on our programs organized by AJC alone or in cooperation with the Civic Resilience Initiative, whose director, Tomas Kazulenas, was our partner. I also want to thank you, Thomas, and your NGO for this terrific partnership. Thank you so much, and look forward to working with you more in the future. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lukas. Bye.